My name's John Bowersox. I'm from Westminster, Maryland.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Westminster, Maryland.
And how did your family come to be in Westminster?
Well, my father was the son of a Lutheran minister. He moved here when he was 11 or 12 years old. My mother came after when she felt it was time to leave West Virginia to come for a better life, to find a job where she could work. And
right.
They met here.
So you lived in the town?
Yes.
And what was a typical day like for you when you were growing up?
Gee, I don't know how to answer a typical day.
Did you, did the kids play in the streets? Did you
well, they didn't play in the streets.
Work on the farm? Or?
Well, no, I lived in town, never worked on a farm. Well, the kids played. They played mostly on the playground, at Westminster Playground, back of the Armory.
What kind of activities did they play?
Whatever was in season, I guess you might say. There was nothing organized. The kids just got there and played.
And where'd you go to school?
In Westminster. Everything happened in Westminster then.
Right, right. So tell me a little bit about your school days, or where you went to church, those kind of things.
Well, school was, I don't know how to describe it, if it's any different than any others. There was two elementary schools in Westminster at the time. One of those elementary schools went to the 5th grade only, and then those students came over to the other elementary school, which was on Center Street. And
how did you get there every day?
we walked. Everybody walked practically, unless they lived out of town. Those people who lived at the Western Maryland College area, at that end of town, they walked to school. Today they don't walk to school, they drive the bus. Then after elementary school, we went right into the high school, which was 7 through 11 when we started. But before graduation, my class got caught in the 12-year plan, and we went 12 years there. But it was just two schools in the area, elementary and then the high school. Things have changed quite a bit since then.
Where'd you go grocery shopping?
At the corner grocery stores. There were no shopping centers at that time, and up and down the street there was an A&P store in the center of town, which was a small store. After the war, a small co-op store was organized and started business. A lot of people didn't go there because back then, if you belonged to a cooperative, you were considered communist. And a lot of people wouldn't go and shop there. And then there were a lot of little privately owned stores, grocery stores, where they sold, in addition to groceries, chicken feed and that sort of thing. Because so many people had, even in town then, had chickens and ducks and things of that nature.
What were the houses like in town?
About the same as they are right now.
Are they? They had all the amenities? And
oh, yes. Yeah. Well, yes. Yes. They did.
Tell me a little bit about when 140 started to grow up.
140 started to grow. It was in the 40s. We hadn't graduated from high school when it had started. Matter of fact, it was probably about 47 or 48 when they got it started, and it wasn't finished until in the mid-50s, I would think. A lot of good agricultural land was sold for the rights of way, and then after that, you can see what has developed.
Before
along that.
140 was there, were there what kind of businesses were in town?
All of the businesses were in town. A lot of the places where people worked was a large shoe factory, which was on Green Street. It filled the whole block. They hired quite a few people. There was also 3 or 4 sizable sewing factories where mostly ladies worked.
Did they sell what they made in Westminster, or did it go somewhere else?
They were out-of-town owners, I would think. I believe that. I was just a young fellow then, and I do believe that they were owned by out-of-town people. There were feed mills, 2 or 3 feed mills right in town, and that's where everyone came throughout the county to get their feed for their livestock and all the other things that they needed, fertilizers and that sort of thing.
So did that change when 140 came?
Well, everything went, not everything, but so many things changed. There were 2 large, at the time, large lumber companies right in Westminster. They have since gone. Hardware stores, restaurants. Well, all of Main Street has changed tremendously since then.
Right.
The everything, and as progress dictates, it has all moved out along the highways into the other shopping areas and places like that.
What do you miss the most about the way it used to be?
Well, being young and run up and down the street, I guess. I grew up on the street, so to speak, right in town. I spent many days there. Much of my time was spent on the playground. And a lot of old friends I remember from there. But that's where we spent so much of our time.
Did most of the people stay in Westminster after they grew up?
Oh, I would think at least half of them left, if not more. Hard to say for me to say how many or what percentages stayed, but some stayed and some left.
Where did you go to church?
Well, I went to church at Grace Lutheran Church. That's where I grew up. I was baptized there and confirmed, and at a later date, after I got married, I then joined my wife's church down at Sandy Mount. It's a Methodist church there. But I grew up in the Lutheran church in Westminster.
Were you born in the hospital or were you born at home?
There was no hospital. I was born in, the address was 58 East Main Street. Yes.
And that was typical then?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Did the doctor come to the house?
Well, yes, of course.
So they always were doing house calls back then?
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah.
How would you describe Carroll County to someone who's never been here before?
A beautiful place to live. Very nice people. Changing, of course, like everything else.
Right.
But it's still very nice. Scenic.
Did you have any other memories that you wanted to share?
One thing I will share, thinking about this and reading through the list of questions, And you asked about the highway. Well, before the highway, the main route from Baltimore to points north and west was right through Westminster. On weekends during this time of the year, it seemed like everyone who lived in Baltimore was traveling either to Gettysburg or to Penmar or someplace else, because the traffic through Westminster was always bumper to bumper. And it was really a sight to see, really. And another thing that I was thinking of was that before the highway, and while all the businesses were concentrated in town, Friday and Saturday nights, there were 2 theaters in Westminster, and on Friday and Saturday nights they were packed, as were the streets of town. Everyone came to Westminster to get all the supplies they needed, their groceries and their feed and all those staples that they would need for the following week. And they all congregated on the street. You couldn't walk down the street hardly, because all these people were there, and everybody knew everyone else. So they would talk, and it was just like a great reunion of people. And it was every Friday and Saturday night. You couldn't make your way through town.
A big party going on.
It seemed that way, and back then everybody was happy to see each other. As long with all the traffic and all the people, it was just really something to see. I'll never forget that.
Oh, that's neat.
It was very nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all those memories with us.
Well, you're welcome.
And talking about how Carroll County has changed and grown and continues to evolve.
Evolve, yes, it has. Yes, indeed. You're welcome.